The 1971 season would belong to Jackie Stewart. The Scot had been effectively out of contention in 1970, but he would ensure that the new season was very different. Once again, the World Championship season would kick off at the colourful, demanding Carl Army Circuit near Johannesburg. Stewart and Tyrrell were well prepared, but this was not to be their race. After Denny Holmes' McLaren M19 dominated at the head of the field for much of the distance, a suspension failure dropped him from contention. That left the way clear for Mario Andretti to win in the Ferrari Flat 12.
But at the start of the season at Silverstone in May came near disaster. The throttle jammed open and a lucky escape. But we wondered how this setback might affect Jackie Stewart. 2 weeks later at the Monaco Grand Prix, we saw the answer.
On the final warm-up lap, Stewart felt there was something wrong with the brakes on his Tyrrell. A quick check revealed that the brake balance bar had broken. This meant that he had been braking on the front wheels only, but he still went straight into the lead. Monaco is hardly the place where a driver needs a car problem, yet Jackie adapted his driving style to accommodate his car's braking difficulties. Despite intermittently locking up his tyres, he kept away from the unyielding barriers for
the winning form that was to take him through a triumphant season. It seemed that the old engine and the new car, plus Jackie's ability and determination, could see off the best of the opposition.
It was the mark of a true champion. Paul Ricard first hosted the French Grand Prix in 1971. It was a lavish new track which accurately reflected the growing interest in Formula One racing. Once again, the 1971 French Grand Prix was dominated by Jackie Stewart, who won comfortably from pole position. It was also the first time the Tyrrell Fords scored a 1-2 success. Stewart's glamorous young teammate Francois Sever brought the crowd to their feet by finishing a brilliant second. Yet the 1971 season was not solely about Stewart and Tyrrell. The Austrian Grand Prix was led from the start by Joe Siffert in the elegant BRM P160. Siffert was a driver in the same mould as Pedro Rodriguez, who had been his teammate at BRM from the start of the year. Tragically, Pedro had been killed in a sports car race the week before the British Grand Prix. Now Siffert had to lead the BRM team and raise its spirits at one and the same time. On the super-fast Oostenrijkring, the Swiss drove brilliantly to keep ahead of the opposition all afternoon. Stewart retired his Tyrrell but clinched the World Championship. Siffert, nicknamed the Crazy Swiss, would die in a crash at Brands Hatch later that year. Francois Sever learned a great deal from Stewart, the Frenchman admiring and respecting his senior colleague. In the 1971 United States Grand Prix, the young Frenchman took over the reins to win after Jackie suffered tyre trouble. All agreed it was a well-deserved success.
Hicks won at Zandvoort in '71, while the other Jackie won his second world title.
But I never saw them as adversaries. I just saw them as other people on the racetrack. And the more I raced, the more I realised that I was competing against myself.
This, the British Grand Prix, was to be the turning point. And on the fourth lap, once again, Jackie slipped into the lead in the 170-mile-an-hour approach to Stern. As at Monaco and subsequently in the French, German and Canadian Grand Prix, once in the lead, there was no one to touch him. His 6 Grand Prix victories won him the World Championship for the second time and puts the name of Jackie Stewart firmly amongst the all-time greats of motor racing.
We were winning Grand Prix, we were winning championships. Who could not enjoy that?
Even as the Lotus team was recovering from the shock of Rint's death, so there was a symbolic sign of renewal to ease their sense of loss. The young Brazilian driver, Emerson Fittipaldi, came to Watkins Glen for the United States Grand Prix and won. Pedro Rodriguez at one point looked set for victory, but a late race refuelling stop ruined his prospects. The Mexican raced back out of the pits, scattering people in all directions, but it was too late. Fittipaldi was through and held on to score a memorable and emotional win. It was only his fourth ever Grand Prix.
Emerson Fittipaldi came along as a young lion. I really enjoyed racing with him. We had a good time together.
Stewart became the new face of Formula One. Max Mosley became a constructor and team owner with March Engineering. Bernie Eccleston joined him in the paddock as an owner after buying Jack Brabham's old team.
The twisting Jarama circuit near Madrid would host the Spanish Grand Prix for much of the 1970s, and it was the track where Emerson Fittipaldi got his 1972 World Championship assault firmly off the ground. The Lotus 72 had now reached technical maturity and carried him to an easy victory. Then it was Monaco time again, and rain, rain and more rain. The race would be won in appalling conditions by Jean-Pierre Beltois in the BRM P160. It was the French driver's day of days, but a BRM would never win another Grand Prix. Jackie Stewart was off form at Monaco and seemed extremely concerned about the track conditions. Nevertheless, he drove well but spun a couple of times. This was most uncharacteristic and proved the first sign of a stomach ulcer. Ferrari showed well in the opening stages of the 1972 Italian Grand Prix. Both Clay Regazzoni and Jackie each ran strongly, but Fittipaldi was like a man who knew his time had finally come. He had developed a sensitive touch to get the best out of the Lotus 72, and when he finally came roaring out of the Parabolica to take the checkered flag, all agreed he was a well-deserved winner. At 25 years of age, he was the youngest world champion in history.
What do you think about Emerson as a pilot?
Who?
Emerson Fittipaldi.
Who?
You know the guy who won the World Championship?
Oh, yes.
Colin Chapman had his fourth world champion in 8 years. A brilliant young Brazilian named Emerson Fittipaldi.
Fittipaldi's crowning as world champion fueled the infectious enthusiasm for motor racing back in his native Brazil. When Emerson appeared for the 1973 Brazilian Grand Prix at São Paulo's spectacular Interlagos circuit, the fans would not contain their excitement. He duly delivered the result they had been waiting for by winning this first championship round to be held on his home soil. Their delight was matched by that of Emerson's wife and team owner, Colin Chapman.
My name is Graham Hill, and that's me there, getting ready to do something that I've never done before. Drive my own racing car. Graham Hill's Shadow is my car, and Shadow is the name of the car. There's one absolute factor that governs everything you do. Time. We're battling against time. All the performance we're getting into the car, everything we're doing, everything is aimed at saving time on the racetrack. And by saving time, I mean fifths of a second.
Cars which started the South African Grand Prix were still to an older specification. Stewart took an immediate lead at the start, driving with all his customary controlled flair. He won the race, despite a controversy over yellow flags. Nobody could have guessed from his outward demeanour that he had already decided to retire at the end of the year. Meanwhile, Clay Regazzoni had a lucky escape. His BRM crashed and burned at Crowthorne Corner. But Mike Hailwood stopped his surtees and went to the rescue. Both survived with only superficial burns. Hailwood was awarded the George Medal for his outstanding bravery. The French Grand Prix was again held at Paul Ricard in 1973. A third works McLaren M23 had been fielded for the young South African driver Jody Scheckter. He led from the start and refused to be intimidated by the more experienced rivals in his slipstream. Eventually, Emerson Fittipaldi tried to dive inside him in a bid to pass. The two cars collided. Egos were bruised, but thankfully nothing more serious. Ronnie Peterson thus had a clear run to his first Grand Prix win driving a Lotus 72. The British Grand Prix is always the high spot of the country's motor racing year. In 1973, the race looked set to be a close battle between the Lotus 72s of Fittipaldi and Peterson and the McLaren team with its latest M23s. Peter Revson and Denny Hulme were McLaren's regular drivers, but a third car was entered for Jody Scheckter after his impressive showing at Paul Ricard.
Chevet's going to be your danger, I reckon. When you beat him, I reckon you win the race.
My first Grand Prix was in Silverstone, the British Grand Prix.
The cars now coming up onto the grid, and they'll only be held there for seconds before the flag falls in the start of the race. The flag's up. Jackie Stewart going through on the inside behind Ronnie Peterson. Jackie Stewart made a blinding start. It's still Peterson just holding Stewart out as they go through Cox for the first time.
What a driver is there for is to take it to the limit and keep it at that limit, and that's in every part of every corner.
And then Francois Xavier, Jody Scheckter's lost it. Jody Scheckter has been hit a multiple shot at the end of the first lap. Jody Scheckter with the McLaren. Jackie Stewart, terribly fast, and Ronnie Peterson coming up, terribly fast.
11 cars retired, but no one was killed.
More would have to be done to keep up the pressure for change and improvement.
Stewart's looking under the bridge, and Jackie Stewart leads the 1973 Belgian Grand Prix at the start of lap 25. Takes the flag to win the first Belgian Grand Prix ever held at Zolder, and to give himself 28 points in the championship. And there's the saddest side of all, Graham Hill in the Embassy Ford on which he's worked so hard. Sitting there, the man who's racing in his 149th Grand Prix.